So today we're going to talk about the 2003 Korean film Save the Green Planet. And I found this movie while just browsing through Canopy. I get Canopy through my local library. And on Canopy, I just looked up there's a sci-fi scrolling tab thing. I just went through it, reading some of the premises, and I read this one, and I just had to check it out. That's literally how I found it. It just said, a man believes that high-ranking people in society and government were actually aliens planning to take over the Earth, so he captures somebody and tries to prove to everybody that he's right. I was like, damn, I'm in. And the more I looked into it, then I just wanted to watch it more. This was the director's first feature, and it was awesome. And then something cool that I'll talk more about in the end is that they're actually going to make a remake of this movie from quite a notable director now in Hollywood. So that's pretty cool. So the director, Jun Hwan Jang, it's his first feature. He has a couple other films. He has one called Huai, A Monster Boy. And he also has one called 1987 When the Day Comes, which is like a political thriller movie about protests and people trying to get justice. And those other two movies were apparently a bit more serious. I think A Monster Boy has some more fantastical elements compared to the political thriller, but it's such a weird turn. I guess the movies were at least 10 years after this one, I'm pretty sure, which is just he went a long time without making something, but just the aesthetic and the direction that he put into this movie seems like a director that's making a statement, and that's the kind of movies that he wants to make. But I guess he just shifted away from that, which is sad to see because I would love to see more movies like this from him specifically. But yeah, I looked it up. It said it was a $3 million budget, which seems very reasonable for some of the effects that were in the movie and the locations that they were getting. And the box office numbers weren't really that high. We had a 15,000, sorry, domestic just over in the US. And then it did have a bunch of festival circuits and everything, but that's most of the information that I could find. Yeah, it went to a few different festivals. I know, winning a few awards, some for best first time director and things like that. So it had its run. So before I get into spoilers, I guess a loose plot of the movie, I guess I kind of mentioned it already, but yes, a man believes that high-ranking people in society, CEOs, government officials, people like that, are aliens from a planet called Andromeda, I believe. I think that's what it was. And then he captures one of them and tries to prove to everybody that he is, in fact, correct and aliens are running the Earth. And in the end, who knows? Maybe they are, maybe they aren't. But okay, so from now on, I will talk about spoilers. I'll get into the nitty-gritty of the rest of the film, but I really liked it. I think that it started off, you had that slideshow that went on for quite a while of him trying to explain to everybody that these high-ranking people were actually aliens, and it was a great way to start it. And then right after that, it goes into him capturing the CEO in the parking garage. He pepper sprays his eyes, and you see him walking out, and he has the helmet. The helmet was so cool. The helmet had this moving part in it, and I'm like, damn, that's just a super fun. A costume person had a real good time that day. They were interviewed for this job, and they're like, sick, I'm in. That because the helmet was super cool. I would love to have that helmet. That would be a great prop to have. I hope the director or the actor or somebody still has those helmets because those are sick. And so yeah, he captures the CEO and then begins to bring him in his basement, and then him and his girlfriend are there, and they start torturing him, trying to prove his point. They bring this foot cream, I think menthol foot cream. No, it's not foot cream, sorry. It's just a rub cream. And they say, okay, there's 3 points on the body that we have that will neutralize their psychic abilities or it goes into that visual effect of inside the body, and it gets a cell and breaks it up. Need to get into the bloodstream or so. Oh yeah, they shave his head because his hair is transmitters so that he can communicate, because obviously aliens communicate with their hair, of course. And so yeah, that scene where they shave off his foot with sandpaper and put the cream on it was great. At that point in the movie, I was like, I think after like the intro sequence with the Somewhere Over the Rainbow punk Korean mix, I was like, okay, I thought it was going to be a little more serious and dark than this, because it is a dark comedy, but I think there's a few different ways you can do a dark comedy. There's dark comedy where you also have these more light comedy, maybe slapstick elements with this, which this movie definitely has. Like the aesthetics of like even the intro scene we have with that like silly punk music of Somewhere Over the Rainbow, and just, yeah, the costumes and the things like that. So that's kind of a, it's hard to define it because the word dark comedy is already saying, oh, it's more serious, but it's kind of more like a light dark comedy. And then a darker dark comedy, I would put more akin to something that the narrative in the world, they take themselves more seriously, but the premise is just so ludicrous and so inherently comedic and like satirical that that's what drives it, and they stick to that the whole time. But this one, yeah, more on the light comedy side. I hope that made sense, but it makes sense in my head. And so, yeah, they do various things to torture him. They do things like, yeah, the foot cream. They do the electric zapping because they have to test to see if he's really an alien, because they can withstand more zapping than humans can. And he does withstand zapping. He does, in fact. So maybe that's an early on clue that something may be afoot. But then he does things like burn his nipples with an iron as well. Things like that. So, yeah. And then at a certain point in the movie, the girlfriend leaves him because the guy who was captured, he's a CEO of a chemical company. And he says to her that he doesn't love her and he's just using her for this. And then she goes and talks to him and he doesn't say that he loves her. She says that she loves him and he just can't say it. And I guess at the beginning of the movie, because it portrays this guy as the protagonist, here, maybe I should get some names in here because I'm just saying like this guy and that guy. Lee Byung-gu, he is the main character who believes that everybody is aliens. And so it's kind of presenting that he's the protagonist and that his viewpoint in the movie may be right. But then as this is going on, as the audience is learning that, okay, maybe he's just off his rocker and a conspiracy theorist, the girlfriend is feeling the same things as well, Suni. And so, yeah, she confronts him. He doesn't say that he loves her. And she dips and she goes to the circus, which was a little weird. And when she went to the circus, I was like, this feels like Blade Runner in a weird way. Because in the end, she comes back and tries to help him. And she does like a super flip and everything. And she's in her like circus attire. And it just reminds me of like the girl in Blade Runner who does the flips. And she comes out from like the hallway in the apartment and just starts a fight while doing flips. And it's like, there's a phenomenon that I believe is true, that I call it the Blade Runner phenomenon, where the first time you watch a movie, you hate it and you don't understand it. And this can be akin to more like maybe cult or critically acclaimed movies. And then the second time you watch it and you love it, because that's exactly what happened when I watched Blade Runner. Mind, I did watch Blade Runner when I was a bit younger. Maybe I was like in grade 11, 10. And then I've seen it twice again since, and I absolutely love it. And it's just hard to explain because I've met so many people. I talk to them about Blade Runner, and they feel the exact same way. Or they watched it once, and then I tell them, okay, give it another shot. Because really, on the second time, you understand what's happening more. You know where the story goes, which allows the earlier on moments, the slower moments that you really have to sink in and understand to hit more. And I think the first time I watched it, I didn't like it because of those weird moments where it goes into this creepy dollhouse, this guy making these like robotic, these replicant, just like things out of toys. And I guess I just didn't digest it enough. And now comprehending the entire narrative of Blade Runner and what it's about and the humanity and everything, that, yeah, that does make sense. And it's a cool detail to that world. And all that's to say that this girl reminded me of that one girl from Blade Runner. But I want to get that off my chest, that Blade Runner anecdote. Okay, back to the main story. So as they're as he's torturing the CEO in his basement. The police are trying to figure it out. And so we have three kind of main police officers. Two of them, really, that are the most important. We have the younger inspector, who seems to be like the most important out of them all, Inspector Kim. And then we also have Inspector Chu, who comes to investigate the crime scene. He's like the old grizzled veteran who like has solved things with his sense of smell, and people like laugh at him sometimes, the other police. And then you have the police chief, who I actually don't really remember his name, but he's not as important. He just like is like the bumbling police chief who gets showed up at the end. And so they're actively trying to figure out who captured the CEO, and they think they find a clue when they have this footage of a guy going to a bank, withdrawing $4,000 from his credit card, and then driving away on a motorcycle. And then there's this whole thing where they try to enhance on the license plate. And I don't even know if that led to anything, but they're like, oh, good job, young guy, Inspector Kim. You're really doing your best. And I guess that's kind of just like showing to the audience, hey, this guy's important. We should follow him. But then this $4,000 end up coming to play because the main guy, he is using, well, we assume now that he's using that credit card, and that he is now trying to keep his mother alive in the hospital, who is in a coma, by these monthly payments. Even though all the doctors are kind of just laughing at him, be like, okay, yeah, she's kind of just like gone. But he's keeping him alive, or keeping her alive with monthly payments. And they're like, okay, if he's paying us, okay, sure, yeah, we'll keep her alive for you. And so that kind of gives a bit of insight into the backstory. And eventually later on, we do get like this whole backstory montage of what his childhood was like. But yeah, his mother is kind of like the driving point. That kind of puts the nail in the coffin of making the audience believe that he is actually going crazy because he's so traumatized by his mother being a vegetable, as the doctors say. And so, yeah, I was going to say as that's going on, but no, before they get into all that backstory, we have the old detective who comes to investigate. And so he comes in and he's like, oh, I'm just a part of this thing. I forget what he said, just like this, he's looking for some people. And then he asked to stay the night. And at this point, the guy in the basement, the CEO, has escaped a bit because, you know, the main guy is occupied with Inspector Chu. And so, I don't know, it's just like the small details that just like make you laugh. Like the kind of slapstick stuff where it's more silly. He escapes into the stairwell that leads into the outdoors, but he can't talk because what's his face? Lee Byung-gu stabbed him with some needle that makes him not be able to move that much, and so he's in the stairwell sticking his fingers out of the ground right exactly where they're having a conversation. And I don't know, it's very like Looney Tunesy kind of, but I thought it was funny. And so the detective Chu, he stays the night, and then there's like this whole thing where he's pretending that he's fronting everything with a mannequin manufacturing business. He makes a bunch of mannequins. And then there's this whole part where he thinks the detective's asleep, so he goes in the basement, and then to put the CEO back in like the torture chair, and then the detective hears something get knocked over and comes down, and oh, he's working on a mannequin. Actually, he's working on a mannequin. So yeah, that stuff was all right. A little bit of tension there, and then as he's leaving, he sees the doghouse. The dog's name Earth, which is a great name. Love it. And he sees that there's literally a skull in there. And so that kind of hints like Byung-gu has done this before with humans. And then I believe, I forget what part of the movie it's at. It's like, he says, or somebody else says that he has tried to capture people before. And there's a couple people who thought it might have been aliens. But then in his book, it's revealed that he has pictures of all of them, and that, oh, this guy was actually a human, I was wrong. This guy was a human, I'm wrong. This guy's a human, I'm wrong. And so, yeah, again, reinforcing that he's actually just crazy. And it was weird because in the end, I did still want to root for him, kind of, because he's literally the protagonist and we've been following this whole time. But I guess morally, if it's actually happening in the world, then you don't side with crazy conspiracy theorists. But alas. And so, where was I? He saw the skull in the doghouse, and then he goes to confront Byung-gu again, and he pulls a gun on him while he's taking care of some bees. He's a beekeeper in his beekeeper outfit, and he like throws some honey at him, and just a million bees just swarm him, and he gets destroyed. He falls off like a hill, and I'm pretty sure he just died. And so there he goes. He's gone. And so after that, he goes back in the basement and tries to, I don't know, he keeps on torturing the guy. And the CEO, he says, okay, man. I have this chemical that I'm just keeping in my trunk, which was a little convenient. He's keeping it in his trunk that will, revive your mom. She'll be all right. And so Byung-gu is like, okay, I'll try it because I'm desperate. I'll try anything. But if not, I'm going to come back and kill you. And he's like, okay, cool. So he goes and it kills his mom, which is unfortunate. And as he's escaping, the CEO, who is now nailed to a cross by his palms of his hand, he pulls it out from the nails, which was great. I love that. It was great. That's the kind of torture that it was just like, it works well with like the comedy elements. I don't know. It just, violent comedies are fun. And this one did it very, very well with like the practical effects out of all of them. And so he reads through all of his books and his documents, revealing that, his mother is in a coma. His father was abusive. And then it was like his mother was put in the coma because I think it was some chemical that I think was linked to the CEO during a protest. And so she was just conked maybe in the head, inhaled some chemicals, and now she's in a coma. And then the whole thing with his dad being a coal miner, losing his arm, but then like being abusive to the son. And then the whole thing with the son just like growing up with violence, being abused, being shamed in school. Like the teacher literally just spanking him in front of the whole class. And so, yeah, we have all that. And then so after he kills his mother with the chemical that the CEO gives him, he goes back. And as he's going back, we see that the young Detective Kim, has also, he figured out where he lives because in some newspapers with some figures that may have gone missing, he finds him in the background. Maybe it was just pictures of the CEO, but alas, he figures it out. He comes, and then so when he gets back, he finds both of them, and there's this whole like small fight. And then the girlfriend comes and saves the day, and they get the two captured again. So has them captured, and then at this point, because the CEO has read everything, read up on all his notes, he spews this long, like 5-minute story, which was a great montage. I loved it, about how he actually is an alien from Andromeda, and that they came to the Earth, and they wanted to have an experiment where they put a bunch of people on the Earth, but then it went wrong, and then something with, like, the Earth was just waves for so long, and they finally found an island, and then the population grew to what it is today, and they're just kind of ashamed because they feel like the gods, kind of like the Eternals. They're like, oh, we're just ashamed that we made this human experiment now, and so they're going to come kill everybody, so we got to go stop them. We got to actually just go tell them that, we shouldn't actually kill everybody. And so they go to this factory. And the guy's on this computer for a long time, and he's pretending that he's going to go and contact all the aliens, but instead he programs. He just knows how to. He's just a genius. This CEOs, they're on the front lines. They know what's happening, because the CEO, knows how to program a robotic arm that's in the room to choke and kill his girlfriend as a distraction, which was crazy. There are some, if you think about it, it's just very convenient. But alas, it happened. And then there's this whole fight scene that goes on for quite some time, of the back and forth. You're thinking he's dead, but then he comes up and he has the gun, and then, but then the CEO has the upper hand. But then he comes back and he's about to shoot him, but then the shot's fired, and Inspector Kim shoots him dead. Byung-gu, he's dead. And he says, as he's dying, who will save the aliens now? Who will save the Earth now? What am I saying? Who will save the Earth now? Because his whole thing was he wanted to save the Earth. And in the end, we have a twist that the aliens are real. And the CEO was actually the leader of all these aliens and has been captured and gets pissed at his aliens buddies for taking so long. And then they deem that the experiment on Earth has failed and they destroy it with a Death Star-esque beam. And the Earth just gets destroyed. So, thinking about the movie and its comedy elements. Yes, this could be the narrative that actually happened. There are aliens. I love that idea, that that twist actually happens. But the fact that it happens after the guy dies, it could just be his interpretation of events. Honestly, I was expecting like him to be alive and actually he's been beaten down so much. Like the audience has seen so many things that prove his theories wrong. And then he's finally about to like maybe break and admit that he's gone crazy. And then there's this giant display that finally redeems him. And then he sees that he was actually right all along. I was expecting that. And it would have been cool if it happened. But I do like this ending too because, yeah, he is dead at this point. And it kind of feels just like his interpretations of the events. Because I think it was very much leading up to him just being a crazy conspiracy theorist. But that's just like a funny idea for like a series of movies. Find the craziest real conspiracy theories that people have, you know, the Illuminati, any other crazy things, UFOs, and just like validate them in movies. That'd be just funny. Maybe it'll have some negative effects on those groups, but like, just find the craziest conspiracy. It's just untapped story potential. But yeah, in the end, like all of the actors were great. I think that the main guy, Shin Ha-kyun, who plays Lee Byung-gu, he was playfully funny. He was like, I loved his like comedic transitions from being super like lackadaisical about everything, and then he has the moments where he like gets serious and he looks up and is like, "You're an alien from Andromeda," and then he goes crazy. I don't know. He played it great. No, I don't say that anybody else was really much of a standout as him. He was great. I think the girlfriend definitely had her moments. Inspector Chu he was Inspector guy. The scenes with Inspector Chu coming to the house and staying over were pretty fun. Their dynamic of literally, he's Lee Byung-gu is hiding something in his basement and the inspector's there. It's always fun. You've seen it many times. But in general, yeah, I really liked the movie. I think that the effects are definitely dated. And even for the time, they may not have been that good. It was a $3 million budget. Like the effects of like electricity. You have those shots where it like goes into the human body, showing like the cells being like split and everything, and then all the like sci-fi stuff at the very, very end. But it's like playfully not the best effects. And it still kind of works. And it was like I said before, my theory of the light dark comedy and the dark comedy. Because this is definitely a light dark comedy, and you can get away with some of those more like campy effects and everything like that, and just the overall atmosphere of the movie. And yeah, it worked very well. I think that I gave it a 4 out of 5 stars on Letterboxd, which again, I always say it's just a Letterboxd review. It's more fun to talk about it and just think about it after the fact. It's just the premise just makes me laugh. Just like when I read the logline. I just read the logline and I was hooked instantly. I was like, okay, gotta watch this. And at the end of the movie, it wasn't what I expected, based on the I want to show the Letterboxd poster and the like the banner at the top. Made it feel a little more okay, maybe that just wasn't a part of the movie at all. That cabin on top of the world. But this poster, you can barely see it. This poster, it has like the torture devices, which makes it feel a little more serious here. Let me actually go to Canopy, because Canopy had a different one even. So if I go to Save the Green Planet on Canopy, there's this one still from the movie that I really like. Yeah, right here. This still from the movie was kind of like part of the marketing that I saw. And just like, it feels like a gritty, darker thing. And this is what made me think it was more of a dark comedy maybe. going along my theory. And I was looking at, it wasn't just Letterboxd. Let me look up the IMDb real quick. IMDb, oh, I spelled that wrong. IMDb Save the Green Planet. And so on the IMDb, it has this poster. And I saw this poster after watching the movie, and I was like, this is like the official poster. And it just, that, if I saw this poster, I would want to watch it way less than seeing that Canopy or even the Letterboxd one, which isn't that bad. Because it still has like those torture devices and it's more like dark and grainy. But like, I understand the charm of this poster and it is lighthearted and everything. But I don't know, I don't love the poster. And it's a weird marketing because it is still a rated R with a lot of like graphic things. But it was just interesting. An interesting note that I made, that the initial Canopy advertising of it was what made me want to watch the movie a bit more. But alas, I did still love the movie. I think that, I said before, the hats were super cool. We had, I really expected that the torture might have been like even more, it was kind of like they had a few really good, like the sandpaper on the feet with the cream, and then things like the nailing them to the CEO to the cross and then electrocuting them. I kind of just wanted a series of like comedy torture scenes. That's kind of messed up, but I guess again the advertising is what got to me. But that's weird because I always talk about how I hate modern trailers and things like that, and this is the first time where it's like maybe a poster led me to think something different, led me to alter my expectations, which in the end made my perception of the movie a little just skewed and notable enough for me to talk about it, which was weird. But alas, it was a great movie. I would just highly recommend checking it out. It was just a lot of fun. It's lighthearted, dark, messed up, and I love sci-fi movies like that. And Korean thrillers are just a fun ride. I've been watching a lot of them recently, so highly recommend Save the Green Planet. And the last thing that I wanted to mention about Save the Green Planet is that it is getting a remake. The same director, Jun Hwan Jang, is coming back, no release date or anything, to remake an English remake of the film, which is produced by Ari Aster, which is crazy. Midsommar and Hereditary director. And again, remakes, always a little fuzzy. Oldboy remake? Yikes. Disney remakes just in general? Yikes. And the fact that it's making it an English remake, it's like, yes, it's reaching a broader audience, but like the charm of the first one is so, it's going to be weird. But if they go down the road of dark comedy, Ari Aster, not really a comedy director, very much a horror director, but his horror is like some of the most pure horror movies of the modern cinema landscape. Like, you have other horror directors that may be leaning a little more towards thriller, but his ones are some movies that I'm like very much most afraid to go watch. So if he provides some of that to the movie, I could see it being great. And I'm very much looking forward to it. It'll be on my radar whenever more details release. And I hope it gets happening. I hope it's happening. I hope it gets done. And yeah, very much looking forward to it. And yeah, that's pretty much all I have to say about Save the Green Planet. I liked it a lot. And now I want to choose a movie for next week. And I'm not sure. I had a couple options. Thief by Michael Mann was one that I was interested in. I also really want to watch the movie Existenz by David Cronenberg because I watched Crime of the Future and I've been in a Cronenbergian mood. I know my friend has watched a couple of them recently, but I have already done Dead Ringers. Dead Ringers is, so that's multiple for one director, which I haven't done yet. And I don't know, I don't have any rules exactly for myself, but I'm like, maybe I should. So those were two options, and also Song to Song by Terrence Malick was an interesting one that I know one of my friends really likes and wants to rewatch. So I'm just going to do a quick peruse again of some options on my, I'll look at Canopy. Canopy has been pretty legendary recently. I mean, Metropolis. That's very long, though. But man, Metropolis is one that I need to watch. 2 hours, 28 minutes. Maybe I should do Metropolis, because I'm a big sci-fi guy. People know this about me. And Metropolis is like a classic one that I just have never seen before. I keep on getting into my head about like these multiple films by one director, multiple of the same country, because I've done quite a few Japanese and Korean ones, and there's still a few Japanese and Korean ones that I want to talk about. But I think Metropolis is a good option. Natural City, that one seems pretty cool too. People have been saying it's like a kind of just a Blade Runner ripoff, but that kind of seems hype. I think it's Korean. Okay. I could do another Kurosawa film. Kiyoshi Kurosawa. Okay. I'm getting to my head too much. So I need to choose between a couple things. I'm going to choose Thief. Don't know too much about it, honestly. Michael Mann, who has done Heat. That's the movie that I've seen, and I really, really liked it. But this one stars the classic, the iconic James Caan. 1981. James Caan. His best role of all time. Undoubtedly, Elf. That's just a fact. And if you disagree with me, you're wrong. But I don't know what to expect from this movie. Michael Mann. I think that, yeah, Heat is the only one that I've seen. So if it's anything like that, that could be a lot of fun. James Caan. Willie Nelson. Jim Belushi. Can't really say I recognize many of the other names. But alas, has pretty high ratings on Letterboxd. 4.0. That's pretty good. So yeah, that's what I'm going to do next week. What day of the week is next week? It's going to be next week. The 13th, June 13th, 7 o'clock here at the Film Swap, we will talk about Thief by Michael Mann.